Welcome to the Mike Bowie Show, where we talk with people who influence people. Welcome to People Who Influence People. Today I've got a great community partner, Kyle Dent, and many of you may know him from his podcast days. Why don't you jump in? And we were just talking about podcasting. You're really comfortable with this, aren't you?
Yeah. This is I don't know what, I came out of college and I couldn't speak in front of people. And then I don't know what, so I'm the owner of Shamrocks Pub and Grill in St. Peter's. And my first day that we had in front of the employees, I was forced to speak in front of the group and for the group.
And you didn't think that through, did you? You're like, we're going to hire all these people,
yes,
and I got to talk to them.
Well, I just realized I had on my team, I didn't have so many introverts, and then all of a sudden we wound up with, I wound up being the face.
Oh, and, yeah.
But it's grown into something really cool, and I've become very, very comfortable speaking in front of people and about my life and all that.
Right. So tell me about Shamrocks, and we're probably gonna go backwards in time and then forward and skip all over the place. But that's how I got to know you, because of your business, Shamrocks Pub.
Yeah.
So you started Shamrocks when?
So I started Shamrocks in 2012. And, the way we met was through the Cottleville Weldon Springs Chamber of Commerce.
Right.
Which I absolutely love.
Yeah, absolutely.
You're such a big part of it too. And I've had the pleasure of seeing it grow the way that it has. And I really do. I love our community. I'm from Maryland Heights. When me and my wife got married, I wanted to live in St. Louis County. She's from New Melly, and she wanted to live out in the country, and we kind of met in the middle and wound up in, St. Charles, St. Peter's.
That is about deadpan middle.
Yeah. So, the chamber is great. I just really think that the St. Charles community is so special. We just have so many good folks out here that work together, that see this common mission to build a great community and kind of have fun doing it. And I think that's why our chamber is special too.
I agree. Well, there are several great chambers, but it's
You're
interesting.
a part of way more than I am.
I'm involved in all the chambers to some degree, as time permits. But it's interesting that different chambers have different vibes,
Mm-hmm.
And that's great for people who, if you like politics, you're going to go to one. If you're into, goofy, silly, whatever, you're going to go to another. Point is we've got something for everybody here. Tell me how Shamrock started. Did you always want to own a bar?
So I grew up in the industry. When I was 15, I started at a catering company in Maryland Heights, and kind of just worked my way up through there, and then started bartending. I worked at Dave & Buster's, and I really fell in love with bartending and the bar scene. And really it's because I'm a people person. Mm-hmm. With someone that has a very short attention span like I do, getting to work through and talk about different things was great, and there's a lot of negative parts to the bar industry, but the real positive thing is the people.
Right.
And I love that. And then I went on to go to Granite City Food and Brewery, which is off Olive. And they kind of fine-tuned my skills as far as how a bar should be ran. And when you take things seriously and set up an environment, you can really earn the business for a lot of people that will come revisit you. And I kind of learned like regulars, like how when you treat people a certain way, when you give them a certain hospitality, but also you're there with an open ear,
right? You
earn business that way.
Right.
So I fell in love with bartending. I still to this day, I said, I'm 39 now. I said at that point I would bartend for the rest of my life, that I loved it that much.
Right.
And I just love the people is really it. I knew the drinks. For some reason, school was never easy for me.
Really?
I went to Lindenwood. I got my degree in education.
Mm-hmm.
My plan was to be a PE teacher. And then we came up with the idea for Shamrocks.
Mm-hmm.
So me and my wife started working on it. And it wound up something that was so hard at the beginning. But then when you involve the community.
What was hard? What was the first challenge? What did you find out? Like, I'm going to open a bar. Mm-hmm. And then what was the first roadblock?
So the first roadblock is you go from a bartender who takes cash out every, I get my tips every night.
Right.
And then 3 days before we open, I was still bartending. So we open the doors, and then all of a sudden I'm getting a paycheck, and now I have to watch cost to make sure that I get that paycheck.
Right.
And really, honestly, like the first year of Shamrocks was disastrous.
Was it really?
It went really, really bad. What
happened?
So all our experience with the ownership and the management was all front of the house. And then we hired out for the kitchen, and which is, it's the foundation of your restaurant. And it just didn't go well.
What does it mean you hired out?
So we I've been the general manager of Shamrocks.
Uh-huh.
The kitchen manager, we hired a kitchen manager.
Oh, I see. Okay. So you weren't directly over. They were reporting. Exactly. It was a layer. You had a layer.
Yeah. So we did that, and the guy that we hired was in our budget. And I mean, people that open businesses, it's hard. You're fitting together a lot of personalities. At that point, we had 60 employees. So trying to match 60 people that have never met before,
right,
and trying to make them get along, and really like 25 of them are in the back of the house. So trying to get all those personalities to meld and work together, it's not easy.
I don't think that the general public, the general listener here, I don't think anybody would even imagine that you would have 60 employees.
I have 60 employees right now.
Right.
Which is I mean, like, I can't believe it.
But you think about, like, you might have, and this is maybe just because I'm not in that industry. I think when I walk into your place, which is beautiful, your new place
Thank you
is
so
gorgeous. But when you walk in there, I'm thinking, maybe 5-6 servers. You got a bartender. You got your general manager, bebop, and kissing babies and stuff. You got a cook and maybe one other guy or girl. I'm thinking 10 people.
Yeah,
but that's not it.
Yeah.
There's way more, isn't there?
For sure. Yeah, just like a regular night. Let's call it like Tuesday night. There are 20 employees on at all time.
Really?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, between the management, the cooks, the kitchen manager, and then you have the dishwasher, and then the bartenders. It's a lot.
Yeah.
It's and really, like, when you take one little piece of the puzzle out, it kind of messes the whole world up.
Yeah.
You really have to work together.
You're taking one cog out of the machine, then everything down line doesn't spin, does it?
Yeah.
What was another challenge you had building from go?
Yeah.
So at this point, you're married.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You and Kelly are doing
so
this.
So I'm 28 years old.
And you guys
and Kelly's
are like,
25.
We're doing this.
And we're going.
Did she work somewhere else?
So we kind of branched off of the Wentzville Dairy Queen. So her parents own that.
Okay.
And they were trying to open another Dairy Queen. Kelly was the general manager of that Dairy Queen. Her degree's in criminal justice. So she was trying to go and be a police officer. And she wanted to work toward being the FBI. Mm-hmm. So we both have these different roads for our education, but we both really love the restaurant industry. So we did that, and it's just the roadblocks. I mean, there's so many, but the second year we had a fire.
Did you really?
And that was a big one.
What was your first location?
So right up here.
This one up here you just moved from. So that was the original.
So we were there
location.
10 years, yeah, and then we've been at the new one for
what?
7 months.
I was just saying 6, yeah.
Yeah, 6.5, yeah. So the fire happened, and it was disastrous. We were heartbroken, and we closed for 3 months. Mm-hmm. But the cool thing, and it's really where our story starts, is that we'd really, before that, for the 6 months before the fire, had really started building on community partnerships,
right,
and just helping anybody out that we could.
Was that on purpose, or it was just because it's who you are?
No. So I really have a great story about it. So one of my managers at Dave & Buster's, he'd moved on, and he was managing a restaurant in Illinois. And I remember calling to him and saying, his name's Jake. I said, Jake, we don't have enough money to pay our bills on Monday. And this is Friday. Mm-hmm. I need you. Do you have any ideas for me? And he said, this is what I want you to do. I want you to reach out to every single nonprofit and any organization in St. Charles that you know, any youth team, whatever. Bring them in for a dine and donate, and you give 10% of your sales to, and then hopefully you earn business from that. And I said, I don't have 10% to give. And he said, you got to figure it out, because you're failing already. And he was right. I started reaching out. We started doing fundraisers. And really the cool thing is, in restaurant industry, some people have, they're if you go to a place and you have a bad experience, sometimes you may never go again.
Right.
And we may have had that. But when you have a fundraiser for your aunt that has cancer, she's coming, that person's coming no matter what.
There's a different reason to be there.
And you earn your second chance. And when you start to straighten things up and business starts to flow like it should, all of a sudden you're doing this and you're proving to people
right.
over and over that, hey, this is a good place. They have a good heart and they're here for their community. Now in the restaurant industry, the national average for restaurants profit is 4%.
Okay.
So
that's low.
It's probably the low. I mean, really, people
those
that
margins
start,
are nuts.
It's nothing. It's the people that start restaurants. You have to be passionate about it,
right?
Because you don't do it to be a billionaire,
right,
or a millionaire, or sometimes even 100,000-aire. You do it because you love it, right. And really, we do love it. Still 11 years in, and we have you have your ups and downs, just like everybody does, but we do it because we love it, and also we've seen how many people we've helped in our community, and we love it. It's kind of like a drug. I was talking to my wife about this on the way here, and I said, do you remember, when we were starting to like really make a difference in the community, where we're writing checks for a big amount of money, mm-hmm. You get on this high, your adrenaline goes, and it's so great.
Givers give.
But you kind of feed on it though.
Givers want to give more.
You want it more.
Yeah. Now in the faith community, as a pastor, I see giving, and as someone who tithes, I'm a tither, and I'm only saying that for this example purposes. But I've got a funny story about that. So, as an adult, going back into church, found a church that I love. I hadn't been in church since I was in high school. Mm-hmm. When I graduated high school, I kind of graduated church. Mm-hmm. So I'm married. I've got a couple of kids. My wife and I are like, hey, we need to get back into church. Great. So we go to church, and we're learning about tithing. And so I go to the senior pastor. I'm like, hey, how do I do this tithe thing? Well, you give 10% of your earnings, mm-hmm. Whatever, to church or wherever you want to. It's in the name of Christ. And I'm like, so is that gross or net?
Yeah, right.
And he's like, yeah. And I said, so what is it, gross or net? He says, yeah. I'm like, come on, help me out. I want to do it right. He says, do what you think is right.
Yeah.
So it's funny because when you start doing that, and I did, and same thing. It's when you start giving and you start seeing results, there's nothing better.
No.
Yeah. And then suddenly, and this is what I see in you, and I don't know you well at all. It's just from chamber, and
we're going to learn each other. We're going to learn a lot right now.
We're going to learn a lot in the next hour, 90 minutes. But there's something remarkable about the people that I'm inviting in, and you're one of them. And I wanted you here because I see that in you too. There's something unique, and it's kind of different, but it's from the same spirit. It's givers give, man, and there's a joy, and there's an intent, and it's not about self. It's about our community. It's about people. It's about love. It's about grace. It's about forgiveness. It's about purpose and passion.
Amen.
And all those things. You know,
you're completely right. You care a lot more. I think you get to a point to where you have to slow down and worry about yourself for a minute.
You do. You have to
really,
put your own mask on.
I've kind of done this just recently, and most of the time I'm out running so much, and I'm just trying to make sure that other people are in a good spot and happy, and whatever I can do to improve someone's hour, minute, day, whatever it is, right. I want to help out.
Right, you want to be a part of it.
Yeah. But now all of a sudden I've started to learn that I have to slow things down for myself, right. and really, take that time, at the beginning of the day, the end of the day, in the middle of the day, and just, take 15 minutes for Kyle.
Do you have a morning routine now? Like, are you?
It's kind of gone. It's kind of gone in like different ways. I was the guy that 'cause I've always been a bar guy. So, I've always.
So morning is like 10.
So it's later sometimes.
Is it really?
Well,
Okay.
I mean, for a long time, and now things are changing now with the new location. But it used to be that I didn't go to bed before 5 o'clock in the morning because I was getting off at 3:30.
It's your lifestyle. It's your business.
Yeah.
You're done working.
Yeah.
You're not ready to go to bed. You
Yeah.
got to decompress. You got
And
work to do.
yeah, so that's a big part of my thing is that I've never been very good at decompressing.
Really?
As much as I try. And it's not, I let it happen naturally, but decompression is so many different ways. It's different every night, I think.
It can be. There's
It
no
can
one.
be.
There's no one thing.
And it just depends on what happened during that day. So I've really started to get into, just making sure that I turn off the world for at least a part
shut media down?
every morning and every night. I try to take 15 to 20 minutes every morning before I get my day going, and 15 to 20 before I go to sleep. And a lot of times it's outside.
Really?
That's where I like to go just to. And people, the meditation thing is something that I've really been working on, and we can get more into that as we get the story built up.
We'll get some of that.
But it's you have to take time for yourself, and I'm a Christian guy as well, and I used prayer was my time, but prayer, a lot of time I was just talking about everybody else,
Right.
and not really thinking about myself.
Yeah.
So then now I have that prayer time, and now I have the meditation time for Kyle, to where I'm only thinking about things that I have going on,
Right.
and how that's affecting my life and how I'm going to combat them. And my big thing now is the mental health thing. And I've battled an anxiety disorder for 8 years, depression for 3, and I never worried about myself.
Right.
It was just something that I was battling with, and I don't want it, but I also want to help other people that have it battle it the way in the best terms that they can.
Well, let me ask you this. This is something I've asked everybody so far. What's it like to be Kyle Dent? I haven't asked them that. I've asked them what's it like to be them, but what's it like to be Kyle Dent? What is that?
I've never been asked that question.
I'm asking.
That's a really great question, buddy.
I'm asking.
Okay,
I
so
wanna
what's it
know.
like? What's it like? So,
And it take a second if you need to
Yeah.
formulate that, because that's that
man, that's a
identity.
great question.
Like,
Yeah.
what's it like?
So, Kyle Dent as a person is always somebody that like, I have a great marriage. Me and my wife are wonderful.
You guys, it's so, and I was just thinking this because of course I did all the research I could on you before you came today, and I noticed on your LinkedIn it's a picture of you and your wife.
Yeah.
And on Facebook it's a picture of you and your wife. Everything is a picture of you and your wife.
Yeah.
There's no Kyle without.
So one of the big reasons about that is, in the restaurant industry, it is said, and I don't have any facts to show it, but they say the national average for divorce is 50%. If you own a restaurant with your wife or significant other, it's 85%. So I'm in the 15% of that, and I wanted kids. We both wanted kids, but the marriage has been so hard to manage and keep together that I'm so proud of being in that 15% that I never want to let it go.
Yeah, that's a badge. It's a crown of honor.
It really is.
Yeah,
It really
that's
is.
a big part of Kyle Dent.
It's a
like
huge.
your marriage is a huge part of you.
The personal part of Kyle Dent is he is this empathetic, hardworking guy that really, really cares about everybody that walks into his business, that needs a helping hand, all that.
Right.
I want to be a part of that, and I want to help. Now, business Kyle is, this guy that started this restaurant that almost failed, that dove into his community, and we talked about the Cotterville Weldon Springs Chamber of Commerce, enormous part of it.
Right.
Like I mean, you can't. There's not many bigger groups that have that many people in it that are so wonderful, that have really helped me along. So, business Kyle, you see me walking around, you see the guy that just, anybody that walks in, I want you to have a great time. It gets hard though. It really does. Because our industry is, the people that come in You deal with people all the time. You deal with alcohol, which, can change like that.
Yeah. Instant. Yeah.
You can have any person there that's having a great time, and they get a little too much, or they get something that sparks, an opinion thing. It's why politics, religion are not allowed to be talked about in bars.
Yeah.
So I've always wanted to have this atmosphere that I built that's so positive. And the people that I employ, and it was much easier at the old location because I had 25 when we left the old location, and now I have 60. So trying to meld those and make sure that I'm bringing up this positive environment and showing all those employees that you care. And you have to get to know them. That's the biggest thing.
Right.
It's you don't know each person. I do this thing called Beer with the Boss. And I sit down and I ask them 8 questions. And I want to know how they're doing in their personal life. What can we do different at Shamrocks? What are we doing great at Shamrocks?
Right.
And how can we help you to be happy? And it comes out a lot of different ways. Sometimes it's I need help with my physical health. Sometimes I need help with my mental health. Sometimes I need help repairing my credit so I can buy a new car for the first time.
You know what? 20 years ago, those conversations would have never happened.
Absolutely not. You're right.
You never would have had. Now, I'm not saying that it didn't happen, but wholesale, you would never see just your average boss, especially, I think, in a bar or restaurant, sitting down and saying, hey, Joe, how are you, man? Mm-hmm. Tell me about you. How's your life? That's a huge thing. And what I find interesting, too, Kyle, is that I asked you what it's like to be you, and suddenly you're telling me about everybody else. Yeah. So I get that.
Let me work on me now a little bit. Okay. So,
and I'm not busting you. I'm just
no, sure. I'm glad. I got to be reeled in sometimes. So Kyle as a business owner is hectic. It is, and I mean, it's an entrepreneur doesn't have the 9 to 5. We don't have the weekends off. Monday most of the time in a restaurant is the day off.
Yeah.
So it's hectic, and it's a lot of moving parts. And like today, I get up and I do meetings from 9 o'clock in the morning, and then after this, I'll go run a shift at Shamrocks until 2:30 in the morning.
Gotcha.
But we love it, and I love it. I love this industry. I've always loved the restaurant industry. It's what's got me there. It's really, I've been in the restaurant industry since 1998, and I want to keep going.
How has it changed? Like now, you were young then, so your worldview at 15 and a half is pretty limited.
Yeah. So 15 and a half to 39 and a half.
So wow, that's 24 years, 25. That's it's a long time. Math major.
Yeah,
but but how's it changed?
Oh, you want the honest truth?
Yeah,
people are awful.
People have gotten awful.
You know what? I knew coming out of COVID. And you got it right.
Everybody's got a microphone. Everybody's got a microphone now.
As a whole, people are so much less patient. They are willing to blow up at anything. And people don't understand when you walk into a restaurant and you're waited on by an 18 to 25-year-old person, they don't think about what they have going on. They only think when I walk into a restaurant, I want my food as fast as possible. I want perfect. I want perfect.
My chicken hot, and it's got to be presented well. I don't want to wait.
Yeah. So my restaurant now has almost 300 people that we can seat, and trying to get, and I compare, like there's 4 people cooking for 300. So you're trying to get every single person's order out in less than, it depends on the item, less than 20 minutes is acceptable. Well, now coming out of COVID, it's very different because, our job force is different. And that's a big thing that's changed. But the way that people talk to my staff, I could tell horror stories.
Yeah.
And,
yeah.
I would love to do, I have to do a thing on the restaurant industry because, the females deal with a lot of sexual harassment. I had a guy that, just last week that, went up and groped a server just walking to the bathroom. Right. And she said, "Who told you can do that?" And he said, "I effing did." And he went to the bathroom like it was a completely normal thing.
Right.
She was standing at another table taking an order. And that's what we're dealing with every single week, all the time.
Yeah, that's unacceptable.
But you know what? Like, I mean, retail's the same way. Retail's the same way. It's everywhere.
It is.
You know, you go walk into a gas station, you see those people. It's all over online. Social media, we talked about, you know, you just raise your phone. We're getting information quicker than we ever have before.
Right.
And if there's...
And we expect it. We expect everything now because of that. Mm-hmm. Because if I want to know, you know, how many spots are on a leopard, I can find. I don't have to go to the library. I can learn it.
Just like that.
If I want a chicken sandwich, I want it now. Mm-hmm. So I see that. And, you know, I'll mention Mike Elam, county councilman.
Oh, I love Mike.
He was talking about that, too, that one of the things in politics that's changed over time is when you're having a public forum council meeting, people will just start shouting in the middle of conversation. People will start calling you names from the community seats. And that's something that I don't think happened 20 and 30 and 40 years ago.
I think they go right for the jugular. Because of social media, we know, like Mike Elam, if you didn't know Mike Elam and you knew that there was a meeting that you could go to, you could go on his Facebook page and you could see something about him, and you know at some point if you yelled something from the crowd, you would get his attention in a negative way.
Right.
And a lot of people do that. Right.
It's easy to get information to build people up and to tear them down. It's simple to get that information.
And I think that's one of my big thing right now is it's trying to find a way to continue to build positivity. And I really work on my staff that way, because in the restaurant industry, you have a lot of people that they just don't have a home. I mean, I've employed more master's degrees in the last 10 years,
right,
that just don't know their way yet.
Right.
And it's great. And I love those people because they work real hard, and then we always tell them, whenever you have to say goodbye, it's completely fine.
It's okay.
We want the best for you.
Right.
You're a part of the Shamrocks fam. We call it the Sham fam.
Yeah.
You're part of the Sham fam. And whenever you get to the point where you find that road into your career, you let us know.
Right.
And building and trying just to keep, even though we're serving 300 people out the front, trying to keep those 60 as positive as possible, and finding the ways to improve their mind frame and their mental health and their experience while they're in my building. And before, like I didn't have that many people that were under 18 or under 21, but all of a sudden I've had quite a few, especially this time of year because school's out.
School's out, they all want to work.
But then you have parents of these young adults that are expecting Kyle Dent to make sure that they're in a safe environment all the time. And
of course.
And then you want to loop back around, you have the people that coming in that want to go right for the jugular. Mm-hmm. You're in a different realm.
I think of my staff here is, and this is what I tell my team, I'm here to support you. And of course, I want them to give the best service and best experience to our members, right? So I have a much smaller staff. Yeah. Thank God.
You have multiple locations, though.
I got 2 locations.
Yeah.
But pouring into my staff is my number one primary goal. Giving them the tools, the training, and especially the mindset, the frame of mind that, there's a certain expectation. And it sounds to me like you're doing that in your restaurant. This is how we do it. This is our flavor. This is our brand. This is how we serve people.
Yeah.
Other restaurants can serve them how they want, any vibe that they want. And I really just focus on my staff, but it sounds like in your situation, because you're working with such a variety, like you said, these kids, you really have to have that solid connection with how your staff is delivering to the customer too. I get to worry less about that because I have less staff and I hire great people and it's kind of done, know. But you're still involved. Your thumb is still on that marker for the customer experience.
My oldest employee right now, and he's my oldest employee age-wise, he's also my oldest employee. He's been there since day one, is 71 years old.
Really?
My youngest employee is 15 and a half.
Yeah, wow.
So you have this long range of ages, and and it's, like I said, it's easier when you have a group. Like if I had at the old place, it was mostly like early 20s. And then, there's a few that are older, that are leaders, that have been around for a bit. But learning how a 15-and-a-half-year-old lives their life and a 71-year-old lives their life, I don't know either one because I'm 39. So I'm trying to do my best while they're in the building to make sure that they're happy.
Right. And it's tough as a business owner to get to know them, what they need, their desires, and how to motivate them. Mm-hmm. And especially if you want the longevity of the employment, how to make sure, exactly like you said, beer with the boss, how to make sure that they're getting what they need. Because, I don't think people understand, Kyle, that I don't think the average patron, either, member at my business or patron at your business, they don't understand that you really do care about that person
100%.
who's working there.
100%.
And you really do care about their life and their experience there. I want my staff to have a wonderful time here. I want them to show up charged up, in love with the day, the experience, the job, the members. And how do you do that in a restaurant?
In a lot of different ways. I think...
What are some of the things you found that are really, like, what's your go-to when you know someone's having a bad day? One of your staff members.
A shot.
Let's do a shot.
Let's do a shot.
Yeah.
Or if they're not old, like...
What do you do with the 15, 16-year-olds?
You take them outside and you have a chat with them.
You just hey, man.
You let them get away from that situation. You bring them out back. You say, hey, listen, I know you had a rough night. I'd like to, a burger. And it just depends. Like you have to get to know your employees. That's the biggest thing.
Right.
Because I have, a few now that are, that are 15 to 18. The one 15-year-old female ticks different than the the 16-year-old male. So I'm really like learning on, and I'm really blessed to have my degree in education because it was all about when I got my degree and I decided to open a bar, I was really disappointed that I'd never get to use that degree. And then over the last 10 years, I learned
suddenly you realize
how I use my degree every day.
All those tools
every day. So finding a way to motivate each of them depends. So it's really just caring. That's it. Just like you said, you care about your staff here. They're spending 40 hours a week here. You want them to be happy while they're in your building,
right.
And that's your job. And you see these toxic environments that are all over business, and they hurt, man. You hear people, for me, there's nothing worse than watching someone beat down about their job,
right?
Because they have to go to bed, and then they have to get up in the morning and get enough motivation to go back and do it again,
right?
And then you bring in,
and if you stop at the employment, if you stop and just say, hey, tomorrow's a better day, or it's going to be better, or gosh, you get it, let it go, and if you stop there and send them home, and not really caring about that experience that they have between that shift. And I think that's something that you're doing. I don't know a lot of restaurant owners.
Yeah.
I know a few, but I know I know the people in the community and how they talk about what you're doing and what you do. And you really do care about them, don't you? You meet them wherever they are.
It's the best thing when you get to know someone and you make a difference, when you could see someone that is, whether they're doing well or not doing well. Like I've been invited to graduations, from people that I employed, now being in, as a restaurant owner for 10 and a half years, now I have people that I started at the beginning that were hostesses or they're dishwashers. And now all of a sudden they're having kids, right, and they're in their careers, and I'm being invited to weddings for kids, at that point when I was working with them.
Probably employed hundreds and hundreds of people over
Hundreds and hundreds, yeah.
Easy.
Hundreds and hundreds.
Yeah.
And the ones that hang on are wonderful. But you have to have that mind frame that you're going to care about each one when they come in. You do a nice introduction and you do beer with the boss to learn about them.
Do you do that right away?
No. I used to, but now it's too much right now. We're only 6 months at the new location, so I'm trying to get kind of caught up.
Right. But at some point you're going to be like, hey, I got 15 minutes. Hey, come.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then you get the negative part to where you really care about somebody and you really want to help them change their lives. And then they don't reciprocate, or they
People are
just
people.
leave. It's hard, man.
It is
really
hard.
is. It's probably one of the things that I like least about being an entrepreneur is when you really dive in. And I'll give you an example. When we were moving from the old location to the new location, I had the lease was over in 2 hours.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So I had everything out of the building. I had one last thing. It was my project. It was our beer system. And I was taking it down out of the beer cooler, and I hear screaming, and I had a cook that was there helping, and he had an epileptic seizure. Didn't take his medicine, and he was dead in my arms. Resuscitated him, brought him back to life,
Wow.
and he quit 2 months later because he said the work was too hard. And that, not only because you weren't willing to just work past a few obstacles, but I had done this big thing, and it was impactful for me because that is a moment that I'll always remember as an owner.
Right.
That happened. The ambulance didn't get there for another few minutes. He was purple in my arms.
Yeah.
And I really cared about that person, and that is long lasting. But then that person had gone through so much stuff and just didn't feel the same way, and not only left Shamrocks, but then bashed me on social media.
Wow.
Which we got knocked out really quick because I said, it's kind of like it's your perspective. At that point, his perspective was because we wouldn't allow him to show up late and we not give him enough chances. Then
Sure.
you know, Shamrocks, Kyle did this to me.
Well, of course.
But you don't
Yeah.
remember 2 months before that,
Right.
when I was coddling you in my arms,
Right.
and you didn't know your name.
Yeah. That's a tough situation.
It's a tough situation. So you have those things that's the part that as an entrepreneur that I really have a hard time with.
Yeah.
The best part is when you get to see, the kids going and graduating high school,
That's
or
neat.
or
Yeah.
buying their first car with the money they made from
Totally.
Shamrocks. That's it. man.
We work with interns with the CAPS program here.
Oh, I love Caps. Erica Land is
Eric is it's amazing.
yeah.
And of course Dan Tripp and everybody
Wonderful.
else over there. But we work with interns, and I didn't want to. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to lie. I didn't want kids in my business, but something made me decide to do it several years ago, and I got involved. I interviewed, and I chose an intern, and Macy Wallace was my first intern.
Oh yeah.
You know Macy?
I know of Macy, yeah.
And it was an amazing experience. Being especially the ones. Now I love the ones that are in the medical side that love what we do with OsteoStrong, that business. But it was thrilling because she was interested in the entrepreneur side. So I took her on site. This was before I had the St. Peter's location, and I was taking her on site visits. I took her on lease negotiations, mm-hmm. and I took just all of the things that you do as a business owner.
Yeah,
and it was an amazing experience. She was my right hand man, and because of that, I keep doing it now, and still having those interns here. And now Macy's at college, like you. She bought the car, and I'm like, oh, that's neat. She's because I hire them all.
Yeah.
After school's done, I hire them all to come in the summer and work here. But that was a great experience, and the interns have been wonderful. But I never thought that I would want young people in my business. I love kids.
Right.
Don't get me wrong. I'm a horrible Sunday school teacher, but I love kids. Like
Yeah.
I'm not your guy if you're looking for a Sunday school teacher, but I love kids. But having them in here has added a spark, especially because most of our members here are postmenopausal women. Mm-hmm. So having teen girls in here and teen boys, it's exciting for them.
Yeah.
And especially to have these kids learning this technology and sharing it. So when you bring in a young person, say as a dishwasher, a bar back, or I don't know if they can even do that. I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely.
But they're learning the ropes, and then you maybe you bring them on as a server, and they're working their way up. That's got to be proud. You've got to be proud of them.
I mean, it absolutely is. And watching the ones that I've hired, from, the 15-year-old ones, and now I do have some that have been there 6, 7 years, and watching them grow as an adult and being there as a mentor and the one thing that I feel like I do a really good job as is just making sure that they always know that I'm there. And when you have something going on, even if I don't understand it, because as your 40-year-old, the 15 to 21, 25, it's a different world now.
It's different,
yeah. But I'm not always going to understand, but I understand people really, really well. And when you're having the relationship thing and you need someone to talk to, I always want to give them the safe place. So if you say, Kyle, can I go sit in your office and talk to you? I always want to make myself available.
Yeah, there's got to be like the button.
Yeah.
There's a button that when you got to allow them to push it and when they need it. I had an employee. She's since moved away. And I'll say this because we're having this type of conversation. She worked for me. She was referred to us to come to work for me by somebody who worked for me. And the person who works for me loves working here, and she and I are wonderful. Mm-hmm. So this woman came to work for us, and we had a member who quit because of this woman. Mm-hmm. And she didn't understand why. It was an ugly situation. The member was offended, was upset. She quit. I was able to salvage that. But out of this, me and this employee sat in my office, and I just wanted to talk with her and just let her rest, mm-hmm. Because this was a situation that kind of blew up. So I said her name, and the first thing I said was, "How are you?" Mm-hmm. And I didn't expect that she would start crying all of a sudden, because I don't have the experience that you do as an employer. And, the turnover of people that you do. We've got several hundred members, but I'm not serving 300 people or 500 people a day,
sure.
7 days a week. But it was really remarkable because as soon as I asked her how she was, she started crying. Mm-hmm. And then it wasn't business owner, boss, it was Pastor Mike.
Yeah.
And wow, let's talk. And through the end of it, what was really interesting, this is funny. I laugh about this because we must have talked for 90 minutes, maybe almost 2 hours. On the clock, we're in the office, and we got done, and it was a great conversation. But she looks up at me and she goes, "I didn't believe it was true. I didn't believe that you cared about people."
Wow.
And two things out of that. It's like, what am I doing wrong to make sure that so what was I doing that made her not believe that I cared about people? One. And two, why didn't I show her that already? Mm-hmm. So I can also take pride in the fact that, well, she did find out. But at the same time, it was an indictment and a compliment all
Sure.
at the same time, right? So it was a moment for me as an employer, and it made me get better.
I think that people that come to us, and it depends on their age, but they've worked with so many people, especially if you work for a corporation. I think one of the hardest things for corporations to do is show that they care.
Right.
Can you imagine running a Target or as a corporation or regional manager trying to make sure that all those employees felt like they cared for?
I worked at Citibank for years.
Oh my gosh, yes.
And at the time, there were 5,000 people in that building. Mm-hmm. Hey, do you know Joe? Yeah.
You're a speck of dust.
60 Joes.
Yeah.
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 Right.
That's hard.
At the time, my boss at the time, Robin Willman, and I'll tag you on this, Robin, but she was wonderful. She was one of those lights in the tunnel. And I ended up working and Cindy Blackstock, too, was the same. These two women that I worked for, Robin, I must have worked for her for 12 years. And I wanted nothing more to be under her leadership because she was someone, and this is interesting because, she would be we're on cubes. Mm-hmm. So she would be in her cube, and anytime I learned this from her, anytime somebody would walk back and present themselves, because we didn't have doors.
Sure.
she would stop typing, turn around, face them, and smile. 100% of the time. So thank you for that, Robin, if you're listening. That's awesome. I loved you for that, and I still do. But giving them the attention is critical. But I want to talk about, you've recently made some public declarations about some struggles that you've had.
Yeah.
So share with me what those struggles are, if you're willing.
Yeah.
And then the follow-up question is, when did you notice these things, and how did it affect you as a business owner?
Sure. So really my anxiety disorder started because of the business. I was overworked. We were trying to start another location, another business. It was a pizza place. And my wife and my in-laws are our other partners. They were off doing this whole thing. And it was something we all agreed to. It wasn't like it came out of the blue and I was like, oh my gosh, they're going to be...
This wasn't a surprise.
It wasn't a surprise. I knew that it was coming, but I didn't realize how much I was going to be left there to handle the day-to-day. So, I tell a story. I'd worked up this list, and I love, I'm a to-do list guy.
Okay.
And I love whiteboards. So there's this big 4 foot by 6 foot whiteboard that I wrote down all these things that needed to be done. And when you're a business owner, it's building maintenance, and it's social media, and it's customers, and it's products, and it's all these things that you really have to keep track of all the time. So I had this huge list, and it was at my breaking point. And the next thing I knew, I was on the ground, and one of my employees was picking me up, and I had a really, really hard time that weekend, panic attack after panic, and it's something that I'd not gone on before because I was so positive. I grew up with a great family in a great household with great friends. I didn't have, it wasn't.
So stress and struggle wasn't part.
No,
it wasn't part of your equation.
To that level, it wasn't.
To that level.
Yeah.
But were you feeling like, in hindsight? Hindsight's always, the greatest observer and teacher. Do you look back now and say, "Oh man, I should have noticed that," or do you look back and say, "Oh yeah, I see how that came"?
I look at it and I say, I get why I did it.
But during the time, like over the last 10 years, did you see signs of some struggles?
No. Oh well, yeah, yes, but it's not. It's young. Like I said, I started when I was 28. I wouldn't say that I was hot-headed, but I've always been willing to express my feelings. And in restaurants especially, like when you see it on TV, when you see Gordon Ramsay throwing a plate, that's every restaurant that you ever work in.
Seriously?
Every restaurant has a hot-headed kitchen manager. It's a part of the thing.
It's just the culture,
It's the culture.
Yeah.
It's and restaurants specifically, I'm not going to say that bar rescue is not BS, and there's a lot of truth to it too. And those struggles and those tempers and then we could throw in, because you have unlimited amount of access to alcohol, and we're known for, the people that work for you are, we're known for our addictive personalities. And drugs run rampant through our industry. Cocaine and marijuana and all that run so fluent. So you add that onto these personalities.
Yeah, and it's just out of control.
It's out of control.
Side question, real quick. Did you ever? So you told me why you wanted to be in the bar or in the restaurant. You love the people.
I love the people.
You love the industry.
Yeah.
You love everything that. Was there ever a struggle with alcohol?
Oh yeah.
Okay,
it's
there was.
constant. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm still. It's all the time.
Is it really?
It's all the time, and because that's how we were bred. Like when my first shift, when I got out of training, through like my first real bartending staff, the first thing you do is go out with the entire bartending staff and get drunk.
Right. And
they initiate you. I think it's a little different now, but it's. And even my restaurant too. And I'm like I said, I'm an open book. Drinking is a part of our culture.
Sure.
And doing shots while you're working is a part of our culture. and I'm still in that thing. I've been doing it I was a bartender for 10 years. I've owned a bar for 10 years. Mm-hmm. It's a constant battle. You always have to watch it. And like most, I come from both sides of the family or alcoholism. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we'll go back to the mental health
so
thing.
the anxiety and the mental health. Yeah.
Yeah. So my anxiety starts, and then I really...
When was this?
So it was 2015. And then I really like the medication that they gave me. You know, you work through, because they have their side effects, but they do work. Mm-hmm. I'll tell you that. And I just recently did a speech, and I said, guys don't like taking pills.
Right.
And that's very true.
Right.
Guys don't like going to the doctors. I got this. I'll figure it out. I didn't have it. And that medication made me feel better. I'm still on that same medication, or I'm still on an anxiety pill till this day. But I didn't have a plan. And recently is what brought, I hit everything. I would say to you, if Mike came up and asked me, Kyle, do you have an anxiety disorder? I'm right there to tell you that I have it, and I battle it for 8 years. Now, what goes on behind
would you have
doors?
answered? Would you have said that 4 years ago?
Uh-huh.
Okay, you totally would have.
The entire time.
Okay.
The entire time. Now, what goes on with that anxiety disorder, and then when you add depression to it, then it starts to get a little dark. And it just piles on you and piles on you. And the biggest thing that I did was I talked. And that's kind of what my thing is right now, is that I'm really working on trying to get people to talk about what's going on. And it doesn't matter in any frame. You don't have to go anywhere. If there's a little thing, if you're saying, I'm just not doing well today because of this, mm-hmm. it's okay to talk about it.
Right.
And a lot of friends now, and a lot of, it just, this whole thing just busted my world wide open, because mm-hmm. I have people writing me from all over the world.
Right.
And saying, thank you for coming out and saying that you're doing that, because one, nobody does it.
Right.
And thank you for being the person that made me feel like I'm not alone.
You don't have to, when it comes to confessing, mm-hmm. it's such an unleashing of a burden. You're just lighter.
Yeah.
And it's life-changing. And suddenly you realize there's a light at the end of the tunnel, and it's not a train, It's an actual light, know? But not everybody has to confess publicly.
No.
You can
you're
confess
100%
to your
right.
You can confess to your best buddy, your fret buddy, your best friend. You can confess to your wife. You can confess to, as a matter of fact, to begin, you don't have to confess to anyone. You can just speak it.
Yeah.
Just saying the words. But it takes something more. I think it takes a bravery to confess publicly. And I remember your Facebook post, mm-hmm. and that was one of the, and I've known you for a while, but one of the first things that drew me to you from, and there's a table between us, so relax, emotionally,
mm-hmm.
right? That made me interested more in you. Mm-hmm. Not that I wasn't already, but it was just business.
Sure.
I'm like, Kyle's a successful businessman. I want to know him better.
Yeah.
And I would have invited you on this podcast anyway, because you're an influence in business, and it's all because of, like you said, it's the giving.
Yeah.
And what you get from giving, it far exceeds what you give. Mm-hmm. But this is another layer.
Yeah.
This is a personal layer, and not everybody has to share that publicly, and you did. So has your life changed?
Oh my God.
Since that Facebook post.
It's so different, and I want to tell the story, and because there's this Christian aspect with this podcast, obviously, I want to tell a story about how I kind of went and combated finally what I did. So, was battling for a long time. 3 months ago, I was going through the worst bout of depression I ever had, and for the people that are listening, the anxiety, depression, I always say, I call it the anxiety monster, because you never know when the monster is going to come out. And depression's a little bit different, because it's a lot of handling emotions, and it's a long thing. Anxiety.
Do you have a warning with depression? Like, do you?
No, I don't with depression. I do with anxiety.
Oh, I would have guessed otherwise.
Yeah, it's I can feel, and it's, I mean, I've also had a longer time with the anxiety than I have the depression.
Okay.
But again, I'm this very positive guy that lives a really good life. I just have these two things that have a little bit of hold of my mental health that I have. It's an everyday thing. You really, really work on it, and I've seen the strides that I've made have really improved my life. Yesterday I had a really bad day.
Did you?
Really bad day. But you take your time, you sit at home, you lick your wounds, and then you try to build that plan for the next day.
And you've got tools now.
And I have tools now. So I want to share the story. So anxiety for 8 years, depression for 3 years, and I'd hit my breaking point. And when I talk a lot about this, and a lot of people ask me about suicide, and I've never been suicidal. It's not like I don't get very low or I feel like I have nowhere to go. It's just you get to this point where you can't figure out how to dig yourself back out of the hole.
It's just heavy.
It's heavy. It's heavy. But you've been collecting it for months. And really with me, I've been collecting the anxiety stuff for 8 years.
Yeah.
I mean, my wife knew, a few best friends knew, but like even my parents, who I talk to a lot still, they don't know. They're so caring. They always want to be there for me. But it's hard because you have to put out to someone that is your protector and tell them that you're not okay. And they don't want to hear that because they can't protect you as much as they could before.
Did you try to hide feelings of anxiety from your wife?
No. I mean, yes and no. I'm a really good communicator.
Okay.
My wife she battles depression, anxiety as well. She's very introverted. So, it's a lot easier for me to talk to her and explain what's going on than for her to talk to me.
Right. And she may identify and just say, exactly.
And really, I mean, it's now we work every day, and it's asking if you're okay, or when something hits the fan, let's work this through. And I've really been trying to just tell her, like, slow down.
Right.
Instead of acting very quickly, you got to slow things down, and let's really plan out on how you're going to act.
Right.
And that's a big part of my anxiety. So like I said at the very beginning, you're taking 15 minutes. I always think about what I have, the meetings I have, and what may create anxiety for me. And then I say, when I get there, let's just slow down for a second and let's really combat it the right way.
Right.
And that's hard. And I tell this to people over the last 2 months, and people are like, I can't do that. You can. It's training.
Right.
And for some reason, it just clicked off with me.
It's silly, but even in conversation, if you're asked a question, we know from in business, if you were asked a question, just from a business perspective, you would pause and you would answer the question.
Yeah.
Why? Because you have to formulate your thoughts. You don't want your first response. You don't want a knee-jerk reaction. You want to have a couple of moments, just seconds, to pause. And this may be a silly analogy, but I can see I don't have anxiety. You know what? I think I have, because I've had some tightness in my chest in my life, where maybe 4 times.
Yeah.
Where I was just like, I don't know what this is. So I breathe and I get through it. But that moment to pause, that's so powerful in every situation. Slowing down and saying, hold on, I'm just going to let my mind process this. And then, so you've been able to, you've had some success.
Yeah. So going back to the one thing I really wanted to share. So I'm new to hunting.
Okay. Yeah.
And do you hunt?
I do.
Yeah. So I didn't grow up in a family with that, outdoorsy nature, go out but I did it because I wanted to feel the full circle. If I was going to eat the food, I wanted to understand what it was like. So, and I don't want to get into that, but
sure.
So I I went into the woods, and on my way up, I drove 3 hours to my hunting property, or that I go to with my buddy, and I knew that I had 4 straight days of getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning, watching the sunrise, and trying to get a turkey.
Right.
But when I was driving up, I said, Kyle, I've just had enough of this. I've had enough of you trying to let that one pill that you take in the morning handle all your problems.
Powerful,
and
yeah.
I said, when I come back from this hunting trip, I'm going to have some type of plan. And so I wake up the first morning and I sit there and I started. And I'm a Christian guy and I started praying. And when you're out in the woods, you don't have cell phone service. It's the birds chirping and all the, it's nothing.
Different.
It's nothing like it in the entire world.
Nothing.
And I said, for me, when you're sitting at the stump of the tree and when the sun rises and the owls go and then the titmouses go and they make their noise and then the cardinals go and the turkeys start to gobble. It's the exact same way every morning. Mm-hmm. Every time. No matter where you're at, it's the exact same. So that kind of like resonated with me. So I knew I was with nature and I knew I was close to God. And I said, God, I know you've forgiven me. And Kyle, we're going to work on forgiving yourself. So over the next 15 hours of sitting in complete quiet, I said, Kyle, here's your thing. Where do you have that really something you really want to work on? And each thing that bugged me on a regular basis, that like personal things.
Sure.
So like holding grudges. I don't hold grudges, but I was holding grudges against myself. There was a lot of things there's a lot of emotional baggage that I had, and I needed to get rid of it. Last day I went to hunt, I said, this is it, buddy. God, you've forgiven me. Kyle, it's time to forgive yourself. Mm-hmm. And I felt this weight lifted off my heart. Like it's, that moment. It's like what you read in or you see in the movies. Mm-hmm. It was the exact same way. And it's like and people that are listening, if you have panic attacks and you don't know what's going on and your heart races and you don't know how to stop it and you're just trying to breathe and you're trying not to pass out, when you start to feel back to normal again, that's how I felt.
Right.
And that was my moment. And since then, I've started to speak and I've started to talk and I've started to help other people. It's been life-changing.
If you're someone who loves people and you have a struggle and you garner tools, you start collecting tools to whittle away or to improve that situation, it gives such an opportunity. It gives you a venue to serve in another way, mm-hmm. which brings another incredible joy. So what are you proud of through this?
I'm really, the one thing that I had, and I realized it was a part of my thing, is that I was always out looking for approval. When I did something well, I wanted someone to be there to pat me on my back. But when they patted me on my back, I didn't listen to them. I was always focused on the negative parts. So, and there's, we can go into the positive and negative. It's been talked about forever that you pay attention more to the negative than you do the positive. So I really started to slow things down and focus on the positive. Mm-hmm. And I'm really proud of myself. I'm proud of myself for reaching out and talking to people. I'm really proud of all the people that I've helped so far. And I had no idea where it was going to take me. Mm-hmm. And people come up to me quite a bit. I see people, that, my last thing was viewed just on my page 5,000 times. And then it went on a Facebook page, The End Is Near, which is, mm-hmm. Brandon.
Right.
And that has 106,000 followers on it.
Wow.
So that was put on live there. So a lot of people, that's kind of how I got like people from New Zealand writing me mm-hmm. and saying,
right.
Hey, I needed this today. That's being of service to people that way. Even though I'm not a mental health professional, I'm just a guy that is willing to talk about what's going on in his life.
Right.
And I'm not scared of it.
Right.
And I don't realize it when I get up there and when I went back and watched my last speech, and it was 20 minutes of me pouring my heart out. Mm-hmm. People say, you're so courageous, you're so brave, thank you for doing that. And to me, it didn't realize that in the moment. It's just something that I did. Mm-hmm. But then when I went back, I go, oh man, I really put it out there.
Right.
But still,
yeah, you can't take it back. It's on your permanent record.
it's on my permanent record. But you know what? I'm proud of it being on my permanent record.
Right.
Because of so many people. I mean, people that I've talked to from high school, and I mean, I had a guy reach out to me, and I was in a wedding with him 10 years ago, and I really didn't remember him. And he said he sent me a message on Facebook, and a video message, and he told me that he had a knife against his neck last week, and he said I needed a light, and you brought me that light. And then now all of a sudden you start to tie in to these people, and you hear their story, and even though you didn't know them before, you know you're in the same book as they are.
Right.
And that's it, man.
Yeah, the setup's different, the setting's different, the players are different. It's the same story.
It's the same story.
It's the human condition.
Yeah.
And I'll challenge anybody on the planet to tell me their life's perfect, and it's not.
Yeah.
We may not have mental health struggles, but maybe we have addiction struggles. Mm-hmm. Maybe we have codependency. Maybe we have, marital issues. Yeah. Oh, yes. And
this is something that I'm tying into a lot too, that I'll begin to speak a lot more on, is the marital stuff. Mm-hmm. Because you know when you have, and like I said, me and my wife, we both battle, these different things, and it's for different reasons. Like hers, branches from some childhood stuff and, high school and all that.
Right.
Mine branch way, way after. Mine start from business and,
right.
and stress. And so when you bring those two together, to try to form a marriage that is happy is really tough. But when you love each other,
right out of the gate,
it's tough right out of the gate. So I'm an ordained minister. And
I knew that.
And I tell you what, I absolutely love it. It's really,
there's nothing better than marrying.
It's not. There's nothing better, because I have such a great marriage. So when I started in the restaurant industry, I worked for a catering company, and I did weddings for 7 years.
Did you?
So I've seen more wedding receptions and more best man speeches and all that, and I fell in love with it. Mm-hmm. And most people, it pushed them away. And I still have friends from way back then that worked with me.
Right.
And they can't stand it. And
right.
I just gravitate toward it.
I played in a band that did weddings, a band called Groove Thing. I played with them for 10 years. And we would do sometimes 20, 30 weddings a year.
Yeah.
And I always loved, and especially when I had kids, just seeing the daddy-daughter dances. I love the professions of love from
That's it, isn't it?
It's
you're catching at least two people on what is supposed to be the best day of their life.
The happiest day. I am now permanently joined with this person that I'd rather be with nobody else.
Yeah.
It's a magic moment.
Yeah.
I felt like that on my wedding day, and I still feel like that today.
I'm the same way.
I've been with my wife for 23 years, and yes. Good grief, what a blessing.
Yeah.
So what do you see in your future for this movement? Let's talk about your business is always going to be successful because you've built systems, and you have people and systems in place to make it successful.
Yeah.
What do you see in your future for this new venture of your philanthropy, for lack of a better term, when it comes to mental health? Is this a new thing for you?
Yeah, it absolutely is. I really got into it. I like the motivational part of it. I've always been the guy, and I look at some of your books here, and I see the ones that I've dabbled in.
This is not even right, even close, a 10,000th of the books that I have at home. Yeah.
So I like the mental health part of it is something so new that I'm just taking it day by day.
Is it is still a discovery process for you?
It's still a discovery.
So
but I want to be motivational in that point, because I've seen already just in my very short time period of speaking on it and coming out and reaching out to people. It's so the next thing that I'm writing is called Hiding in Plain Sight. And the reason why I'm writing it is because when I came out and said I'm not mentally well, and really mine was self-worth and self-esteem, and always had. I mean, if you get me before my anxiety disorder started, I had the highest self-esteem.
Sure.
I really worked through everything. And then now I'm listening to people and looking around, and people that have just seen me on Facebook and reaching out and saying, I'm not okay. That makes me motivated to do it more. Yeah. And I don't, I don't know where it's going to take me, but I know I want to continue.
Right.
I want to continue to speak. I want people to know. And my first speech that I wrote was called "It's Okay to Not Be Okay," and it was about a book that I read. It's actually Sean Payton who was the head coach of the New Orleans Saints, or was. He said that quote, "It's okay to not be okay." So now we go along, and I'm seeing all these people that are coming out, and it's wild to me because the people that are reaching out, when you see them in public or on social media, they look happy. They were doing the exact same thing that I was doing. I walked around my restaurant on my worst days because you have to. You run a business. You don't get to walk out of this office and go and be negative to somebody. No. You got to put on, I call it the Kyle show.
Kyle, there's times I pull up and, I live a really wonderful life that I love, but I'm just like anybody else, putting the pants on in the morning and there's stress. There are things to do. There are things that are undone. And I came up in high school and college in theater. And the truth is, when I know that it's time for me to, I'm doing air quotes, perform.
Yeah.
It's not fake.
Yeah.
It's real. But sometimes I have to get into character.
I'm the same way.
To come in and be that, because there's an expectation that our clientele has for us, and we've built it on purpose.
Yeah.
When you walk into Shamrocks, they don't want to see Kyle with a frown, in a hurry to rush back to the office and lock the door. You can't do that.
Right.
And I can't come into my center and be negative and just say, no, I can't talk to you. I'm too busy.
Right.
No, if I have 6-8 people in here, I'm going to spend 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes with them. And I'll sit in my car in the parking lot sometimes for 4 or 5 minutes. I'll put on some praise music or even a comedian, just something to lift the mood.
I have this tattoo on my arm that says "Music is the medicine that heals your soul."
It is.
I use music a lot to help.
It's to get into character, and suddenly, not only are my spirits lifted, I still have the same problems, but you can smile and walk in, and you can be real. But it's what I learned getting into character.
Yeah.
But it's the tools.
What I'm saying is I'm not lying to you. I'm not trying to, to walk around and like I said, the show, but you do have to build up this positivity and this excitement all the time. And it's hard.
It is hard.
And really, like, my industry, we're open 7 days a week from 11 a.m. or 10 a.m. to 1:30 a.m. So it's a very long thing. And people, we have, like this weekend, we have events Saturday night, Sunday night. 2 important days to where most people are saying, this is my time to sit at home to do the family stuff. Right now it's beautiful. Ballpark,
right,
barbecue, whatever you want. We don't necessarily get that. So that's something that we have to navigate.
I've recently taken a very structured and intentional look at my days because I can make them whatever I want. I can be productive or I can blow them off.
Yeah.
Right? I want to be productive. And what I learned, and maybe you can share that you've had a similar experience or not, but I would write in all day long, every day, work. My son one day says, "Dad, want me to do a you impersonation?" I'm like, "Sure." He grabs my MacBook and sits on the couch, opens it up, and starts just slamming the keys, going work.
Wow.
I died because that's
how old is he then?
He was at the time he was 8.
Yeah.
And I died.
That sucks. Yeah.
It sucks. And over the past couple of years, I've hired a coach. I'm learning.
Mm-hmm.
This is, and you mentioned you take those 15 minutes in the beginning of the day at the end of the day. I'm putting my money where my mouth is on personal development.
Mm-hmm.
I'm doing 4 hours every day.
Good for you.
Personal development. 6 a.m. to 10 a.m.
Wow.
I schedule nothing. It's personal development. And it's, I get up and I walk 2.5 miles. I make breakfast, I eat, I shower. I read for at least a half hour to an hour. I'm in scripture, memorizing scripture again. And with my kids, I'll sit and talk with them about their lives. That's personal development. I won't leave my house most days now until 10 o'clock.
Mm-hmm.
And I need that. Now I need that. But back then, it was, well, I got to build this empire.
Yeah.
You know? Did you feel like that with Shamrocks?
Oh, yeah. So Kelly my wife Kelly, always worked AM. She was always the morning person. And I would come in, depending on the day, but I would come in at 2 or 3 and I worked till 3 o'clock in the morning.
Right.
And really the first, and we just said this last night, and now we're to the point now where we have several nights a week. We didn't eat at our dinner table in our house for the first 4 years.
Right.
We didn't have a permanent date night probably until year 6, where we picked every Thursday. This was going to be our thing. We battled a long, long way. A lot of times, but you know what? Like when you love your significant other, that point is just you're missing them, and you want to figure out a way. And I think that was part of the business, like making it profitable enough to where I could spend more time with my wife.
Right.
And we live very simple lives.
At some point, you can't. Like in the beginning, you can't. No, it's all in, 100 hours a week, and we're doing this. And at some point, those hours ease up. Did you struggle with letting go of the reins? Like when
I'm doing it right now. I'm doing it right now, and it's really hard because I've always been the routines, procedures, and then making sure the staff is happy. Kelly's the books. She's she runs our kitchen. She does these other things, and she kind of keeps me in line with the checks and balances. I just want to make sure the guests are happy and we have the products and like I said, I was a bartender, so the beer and the liquor and wine and all that was all my part in making sure that those decisions were correct, pricing and all that. So we battled for a really long time, but I had that where, in my part of it, when someone wants to do business, let's say that there's a new brewery and they want to come and see you and they want you to carry their product, sometimes it's 8 o'clock at night to where you're sitting down and you're having beers with them to see their thing. So even if I'm getting off early and Kelly's at home, I'm still out there doing things.
Right.
And she's sleeping in bed alone. And so we really had to navigate that and try to find a way. Your kid saying, this is me on the couch with my MacBook, click, 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 click. It was Kyle. Kyle's out till 3 o'clock in the morning, and he's trying to build business.
Right.
And it worked. I mean, it's worked.
It works.
I've created this thing, but I've had to hustle for it. But it's also got its negative too. Yeah.
There's a moment when I first started receiving coaching, and that's a different time than when I first hired a coach.
Sure.
Because at some point there was a time I hired a coach and I fired him. Mm-hmm. And then 2 years later I hired the same coach because I realized that when I fired him saying, no, I don't actually need this, I didn't know what the heck I was talking about.
Sure.
I didn't know what I didn't know.
Yeah.
But when I first
Your ears weren't open.
No, they weren't. I was just so, it's like when you see red, all I saw was I have a mission. I'm going to help people in the community, and I'm going to support my family doing it, and I'm going to do it all day, every day, 7 days a week.
Yeah.
And I did. And then at some point, maybe it's maturity, maybe somebody hit me on the head, but my wife all the time along the way is going, and this is a confession. I was also on staff with our church for 8 years. And my wife would say, hey, we should go out of town. We should go camping. We got a travel trailer. Let's hook it up and go, right?
Yeah.
Well, I'm sorry. I got work and I got church.
Mm-hmm.
I missed all those years of those camping, and I could have
Yeah.
found time. And last year,
Do you regret it?
Yes.
Yeah.
My regret is what I don't have that I could have had with my kids. I don't regret what I built because now I have so much freedom.
So that's the thing that I have too. So I hustled and I worked the 80 hours a week for 10 years.
Yeah.
And now that, I was able to buy my own building and I've been able to find the correct management that has really, really done well and changed around where I can be out and doing these things just like we're doing right now.
Right. We're spending 2 hours today doing
Yeah.
something that if we had 9-to-5ers,
You would have to come to my restaurant and we'd be interrupted a bunch of times.
Right.
So I don't regret it when I'm thinking about certain things. When I'm thinking about my future freedom and my future travel plans and
Right.
and the financial comfortability that I've
Sure.
done from hustling for 10 years,
Yeah.
it's not so bad. But do I think about missing family events for a very long time? I regret that.
I feel bad because my wife wanted those moments, and I feel like I stole those from her.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of those things that you have to forgive yourself for. And I'll share this. The year COVID happened, we shut our business down. And our members are amazing. Like, they still supported us, and we're not even open.
Yeah.
Right. So thank you all if you're listening. But fast forward, even though we were shut down, I mean, the stress, we're not open.
Yeah.
I'm not making any money. There's nothing like I'm not delivering a product. That whole year watching, our membership kind of started falling off, That whole year I was under a lot of stress. The next year I realized, this is 2021. The next year I realized, I looked at the books and I'm like, well, if I pay myself a little less and I start delegating some responsibility, I did. I don't think I worked more than 15 hours a week in 2021. And I needed that because of all the years prior.
Yeah.
But I took that year and we went camping, fishing, hunting. We did stuff. I was in the kids' lives every day. And now this year, I think I've got kind of a balance.
Yeah.
Do you feel a balance? Like, because I'm working a lot, but I'm playing a lot.
It's absolutely getting there.
You see that coming?
And it's hard. It really is hard because you feel like you're almost doing something wrong. And my part is my wife is there still, and her part wasn't as easy to relinquish as mine was, because the management staff that we had was much more aimed toward the front of the house, and then the back of the house we're still having problems. I mean, and the amount of money that we're paying, employees and stuff has completely changed since COVID. So now we're finally getting to the point where my wife can come away a little bit, and then things are getting exciting, because now we're seeing, like today, I started at 9:00 in the morning, and me and my wife have been together doing meetings, and then going and running around and doing charity stuff, because we have a benefit coming up on Saturday, and then I wound up here.
Right.
And do I have to go into work for a bit tonight? Yes, but it's so much different because I've put the people in place to make my life a lot easier. So now I'm going around and I'm talking to people, and I'm doing these things, and if I have to be away from the restaurant, it's not a big deal.
Right. I learned something recently when I stepped back, and my O'Fallon Center has a much higher membership than my St. Peter's Center. Mm-hmm. And my St. Peter's Center is actually behind in membership what my O'Fallon Center was at a year and a half, where we are now. And we're doing the same marketing, and the demographics are the same. It's almost the same income levels. It's almost the same careers. It's almost the same amount of people surrounding the centers. All the demos look good, right? What I discovered was when I opened O'Fallon, I was in the community constantly in O'Fallon, Cottleville, Weldon Spring. I was in the community every day.
Yeah.
When I opened St. Peter's, I was in the office every day. I wasn't out in the community.
Yeah.
And I think that's a big thing. Someone like you who, you speak well, you have a story, you care, you're passionate. People don't come to me because they want me to care about them. They come to me because they want me to help them develop bone density and muscle tissue and get rid of joint and back pain.
Sure.
Shameless plug.
Yeah.
But they stay coming to me and they stay coming to you when they find out how much you actually care about them. That's not why they came. They didn't come because they wanted Kyle to care.
Yeah.
But when they find out how much you care, they start booking their parties at your center. They start bringing their out-of-town friends. Oh, we got to go to Shamrocks.
Yeah.
You know?
Absolutely.
And that's the difference. And I think that's why it's so important for all of us. And that's one of the reasons we have this podcast, is because I want to discover what leaders in the community are doing. And this is a selfish podcast for me. I want to know what the leaders are doing because I want to be that. But also, it's a lesson that everyone can learn outside of business. My gosh, give of yourself. Like, how has your life changed since you started giving?
It's and we talk about it's like a drug. It's the highest of high that you can get when you see something. And I try to take it into a very small level. And when I can help a friend by using another friend in my network, that I love that. Yeah. I get like a lot of enjoyment. When I can write, when we first started like doing charity stuff, and you write these checks, and I was, we do dine and donates 10%. So you bring $1,000 worth of business, and I give you $100 back. That doesn't make any sense to me. A lot of people do it. It is a way to get started. It is something to accompany something you should be doing. I want to write thousands of dollars of checks.
Right.
I want to make a bigger impact because I get more out of it.
Right.
It's so weird, and people ask me a lot. They're like, "Why you could take that money and put it in your own pocket, and that you're donating?"
Right.
But what I say is, I live in a nice house. I drive a nice truck, and I have an incredible group of friends and family. There's not much more than you need.
What else you need?
You don't. I don't. You know, it's fun for me to go and buy a new hat on Amazon.
Everything else is stuff.
It's fun for me to go and have a nice dinner, but really, the thing about life that is so much fun is watching other people be happy around you, and that making you happy.
That's incredible. So tell me about some other charities that you're involved in right now.
Yeah. My biggest one is Loaves and Fishes in St. Louis. It's in Maryland Heights. It is, I had not been on a board before, and I got confronted by a regular, and she said, I work for Loaves and Fishes, and it's a homeless shelter in Maryland Heights, which is where I'm from. And I knew it was there the whole time. I drove by it every day. And I said, I don't know anything about the homeless community.
Right.
And she said, well, come learn.
Right.
So what I said was, and it kind of branches into what we were saying before about, work. I built a restaurant for 10 years. Really at that point it was 8 years. But I didn't want to be known as Kyle from Shamrocks.
Right.
I keep using the term, I wanted to work on my legacy. And getting involved, I was always charitable before. I've always been very giving. And so I applied for the board. I went in, and right away I just kind of like got infatuated with it for lack of a better term, I got infatuated because it's such a big realm. And it's everywhere around us, and it's not just people sleeping on the streets. It's not, and I do this thing that, when I do events, that when you close your eyes and you think of someone that's homeless, what do you think? And no one ever says the babies.
No.
No one ever says,
no.
The young ones.
No.
That's the majority of it. The shelter that I'm the president for now it's 29. It's 2 big bunk rooms, 2 big dorm rooms, enough beds for 29. Right now we have 21 children and 8 adults.
Right.
And when I got in there and I got working with the executive director, Jackie, who was wonderful, I started to learn and I started to realize that I can make an impact. And it's like a drug. I wanted more.
Right.
How can I help more people? How can I help this organization help more people?
Right.
And so that's my biggest thing right now. And I'm very lucky that, we've turned the ship around for a shelter that wasn't doing very well. and we're getting ready to open our second location, which is a 6,000 square foot food bank off Page. So that's our new project. We just signed a lease last week. But really, overall, Shamrocks has always been the place that you go to a lot of businesses, and if you're not a 501c3 where you're tax deductible, some business won't donate to you.
Right.
I've always been the place that said, I don't care. When your grandma has cancer and she needs help paying her bills, I want that person, because my taxes, I'm not making. We talked about the restaurant industry.
Yeah.
We're not making.
Right.
We're making 4% if we're lucky. I am so happy with where I am in life because I'm not a materialistic person. I only want to help people. So when you go out and do that, life just got so much more enjoyable. And then I appreciated the little things like my house and my patio,
right,
and sitting out there with my wife and lighting the tiki torches. It's just it, man.
Those moments. That the moments are, you can't recapture them, so you have to make them. Working with homeless people, I was fortunate to work with homeless people for about 6 years, and you're exactly right. It's never. I mean, I don't want to lessen the fact that you have homeless veterans and homeless non-veterans and men and women but it's not what you think. It's never what you think it is. It's a different story. It's a different narrative. It's not what you learn on the news. It's not as easy as just going to get a job. It's not even in the same planet as just going to get a job. No, if you imagine driving up on the exit of the interstate and the on-ramp, and there's the guy with the sign. How many of us at some point, and I'm convicted, at some point in my life, I've said under my breath, get a job, loser.
All of us have.
And you know what? I know better now, and I want everybody else to know better. It's not that easy.
No.
And it's mental illness runs rampant, and there's so much more than you can imagine.
Well, the one thing that I always tell people is that, and I had a case at Shamrocks where we had this guy. He was coming in out of the blue, and he holes in his shoes, young 20s. Mm-hmm. You could tell. I mean, he smelled like he hadn't had a shower in months. Mm-hmm. He obviously was hungry because he was kind of ruffling on the trash and all that. And he walked in, and I got my chance, and I said, "Hey, will you come here a second?" And I was in a meeting, and I was like in a really important meeting with the vice president of one of our food companies. And I stopped the meeting, and I said, "Hey, are you hungry?" And he said, "I'm starving. I haven't eaten in 2 days." And I said, "I need you to make me a promise, even though you don't know me. Promise me that you'll never go hungry while you're in my neighborhood." And he said, "Yes." So from that point forward, I started feeding him every single meal. So I get to know him. I mean, and in the restaurant industry, it's hard because you have a guy that you're feeding, but a guy that hasn't had a shower in 3 months. I don't have a shower. And you don't know who he is, so like taking him to someone's house or whatever it was, he was going into the hose on the side of White Castle,
right,
when they would leave that going, and that's how he showered.
Right.
He had no driver's license, he had no social security card, he had no birth certificate. So to get that, you have to go to Clayton, and if you don't have anything, you're starting from. I mean, you might as well be an infant. You don't have any paperwork on yourself. So to get a job in any place, you have to have 2 forms of ID. So how do they get it? You don't have to go to Mars. You're exactly right. You don't walk from Cave Springs on 70 to 170 and in Clayton, whatever it is, to get your stuff, and you don't have anything there, and you think you're going to walk into that building and he'd been,
there's no way they wouldn't.
He'd been living on the streets.
Yeah.
So I tried to help him out, and I tried to get him going, and it didn't work out. But that was my first real case of understanding it's just not as easy.
It's not. Yeah.
The other thing that powerful. I went to, and I think St. Joachim Care Services is a wonderful organization. I love them. I do stuff with them. I want to do a lot more because I think they're that great. But they did a thing where they passed around, they had a photographer walk around and go with homeless people. Mm-hmm. And there was a woman that was standing on the side of the highway asking for money. And they were taking pictures of her, and she did a picture with their middle finger at the camera. And when they came to do this like book to explain homelessness, she picked that picture. And they said, why, with St. Joachim and Anne and the Christian aspect, why would you want that picture? And she said, no one looks at me anyway, so it doesn't matter. Right. And man, did that hit home.
It's powerful.
It's powerful. It's powerful.
Yeah.
So even though I was really motivated then, it's made me even more
double
motivated.
down.
And it's so vast that never do you untangle it.
Yeah.
Because, like you said, the mental health and the drugs and the alcohol and the begging and the kids. The kids are the ones that, and people don't realize, people get homeless because of sexual abuse and mental abuse and physical abuse. You know, when women are coming out or men are coming out and they're left by their other one and they have nothing, you wind up on the streets, or you try to get into somewhere that can help you out.
Right. Now, community council is a great resource.
Community councils. I'm learning a lot about community council.
I had no idea the depth and breadth of what they did until I had lunch with Christy Weber last fall.
One of my favorites.
And I'm just, I asked her, like, what is this? I had no clue. And it's a powerful organization. And anybody listening, please look them up. Just look up what they do. They're connectors.
And their leaders are great.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, we talked a lot longer than I thought we would.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Anytime.
Let's have some fun questions real quick before
let's
we
do
go.
It. I would love
to. What's your favorite childhood memory?
Favorite childhood memory is probably playing baseball and like hitting a game-winning hit, and my dad like coming up with like a huge hug.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Where'd you meet Kelly?
Dave & Buster's. I was a bartender. She was a server.
How would your parents describe what you do?
That's funny. I would say that they say that I own a restaurant, and I'm really big in philanthropy.
Okay. If you could live anywhere in the world, where would it be?
Fort Collins, Colorado.
All right. I'll have you on another time and ask you why. If you could have coffee with anybody in history, who would it be?
This is such a good. Can I do multiple?
Yeah. 2, 3, 4, whatever.
I did get Gary Vaynerchuk.
Yeah. Gary
so
V.
I got to meet him.
I knew you're okay.
I got to meet him, and he's my guy. He's
Yeah.
like he's done a lot. I was surprised a couple years ago, 2019, before COVID, and my wife surprised me with a trip to meet him.
Awesome.
I would love to meet The Rock. I'd love to have coffee with him. Somebody that's probably BB King. I would love to meet BB and have a chat with BB.
I want to play Lucille.
Oh, that's it. So yeah, those are 3 good ones.
What are you reading any books right now?
Yeah, I'm. So the big one I just read that kind of started this whole journey was Unbreakable by Jay Glazer, turning anxiety and depression into motivation. But I'm reading Winning right now, which is from the guy that he was the kind of the sports psychologist for the Lakers.
Okay. What is a common myth about your job?
A common myth about my job is, man, that's a good question. What is a common myth about my job? That it's more profitable and it's easy, because a lot of people come out.
I'm sorry, I'm laughing because I know better.
Yeah, I talked to you'll be surprised how many people that worked really good careers and then decide they want to retire and try to open a bar, and they want to sit there and entertain their friends, and it's just not it. It takes so much more.
That's crazy. Well, Kyle, thank you, man. I appreciate just getting to know you better. Your business sense I've known about. Your tremendous heart for the community.
Yeah.
I didn't know the depth and breadth of your philanthropy, and that's powerful.
Yeah, thank you.
Here's a joke or a riddle I've told people over the years, some of my coaching students. Most of us aspire to be givers and be philanthropists, and we want to be respected, and we want to be able to help people, right?
Yeah.
What's one thing better than being a philanthropist? What's the only thing better than being a philanthropist?
Having a successful marriage.
Okay, but in the business side of things.
Oh, in the business side of things?
And here's the riddle.
Okay.
It's being a wealthy philanthropist.
So I don't know that I'll get to do that.
So maybe we can increase those margins.
Yeah. I think I think creating a business where you love to be in. Maybe that's it.
Yeah, that's it. You know what? And this isn't about me, but I love getting up every morning and doing my thing and coming to what we've built.
Yeah.
Me and my team, my staff, my family. That's got to be a proud thing for you. Like,
I still walk around the new place, and like I rented a place for 10 years from an awful landlord, and then when I got to the point, I still walk around, even though we've only had the restaurant for 6 months. I walk around still and still can't believe it's
pinch
mine.
Yourself? Yeah.
I pinch myself.
Yeah.
And it doesn't stop, though.
It's a gorgeous building. Where is it if people haven't been there?
So it's 7337 Mexico Road, right at basically Mexico and Mid Rivers. It's the old Cork and Barrel or Hatfield McCoy's before that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What's your favorite menu item at Shamrocks?
My favorite menu item probably has to be right now. Well, I'll tell you. My original one was shepherd's pie. Mm-hmm. I love shepherd's pie. Then we did horseshoes. And if you've never had a horseshoe, Springfield, Illinois has this. It's Darcy's Pint made it popular. It's 2 pieces of bread, 2 pieces of meat, covered in fries, covered in cheese.
Oh, man.
So that used to be. It's not. We're not talking health. We're not going to have that
Yeah,
conversation.
we're not gonna. That's a different discussion.
But right now we have it's fried cauliflower with this. We call it bee sting cauliflower. It's kind of like the sweet and spicy sauce. And
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I can't wait to come back.
Yeah,
Thank you, man. I
yes.
appreciate you being here.
I appreciate you having me.
Get
We'll
to
have to do it again.
Shamrocks. Yeah, it's awesome. And support them because if for not, their food's amazing. Everything there is amazing. But especially now after hearing Kyle speak, you know what? A lot of those dollars are going to the community.
Yeah.
They're sticking around.
And we're real proud of that.
Yeah, it's impactful. This is a real community partner. So thank you, man.
Yeah, thank you.
Awesome.
Yeah, appreciate you.
Thank you for listening. Be sure to subscribe and stay tuned for the next episode.